so Bryan,
hey,
welcome to the show, dude.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Learning from Legends, episode 2.
It's a treat to be here in person.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. We spent a lot of time together, but it's nice to sit down and actually have a nice, intentional
I agree.
conversation.
I agree.
So let's jump right in and talk a little bit about UmanityX.
Let's do it.
I know that's been quite the profound addition to your life over the last probably, what, year?
Yeah, about a year. It's been, really for me personally, it's been about 3 years.
There you go.
I mean, when you take the idea from inception and thinking about the idea and what you want it to be, I mean, for us, right, we met back in New York after 14 years and we, over drinks, talked about this idea. And that was already a year and a half in the works. And now we're 9 months into this journey.
Right.
So,
okay. So with that being said, why don't you share with the audience
Sure.
What is UmanityX
Sure.
and kind of what's the origin story as to when that actually, I guess, I kind of have morphed into what it is today.
Absolutely.
Starting with your own personal journey and then leading up to us meeting and then kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it was always about personal development, right? My journey started after a relationship, and I got done and just realized there was so much more that I wanted from life. And it started with one question, which was, what is the purpose of life? I think every journey starts with a question, and you have to go seek that answer, right? Have you ever had a question that showed up for you that started a journey, or
Definitely. Yeah. So it's a major life event, the breakup.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to find yourself.
Exactly.
Connect with, like, what am I doing?
Who am I?
What path am I on?
Who am I? What do I want from life? And I think that's, every personal development journey starts with usually a traumatic experience.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 30. So I was 27 to 30, was in the relationship, got out. And it could be your career, it could be your relationship, it could be your family, whatever it is, something triggers something in your life. And so I just got done with that. And I said, there's more that I want from life, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Got it. And where are you at this time? Where are you living?
I was in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. And
yeah.
What were you doing for your career at that time?
So I was in real estate, and it was actually 3 years after I kind of reinvigorated my real estate career.
Okay.
I was coming out of the relationship. So these types of things could literally happen at any moment in time. And so I had just gone through a personal development. Well, that was more a professional development revamp in my life. But
on the real estate side.
Correct. On the real estate side, I needed to attract more of who I authentically was and bring that into my career.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
With that being said, just to kind of touch on some of the things you mentioned. So
sure.
So you were going through a, I guess, professional process of improving your career in real estate, growing your company, growing your career.
Correct. Exactly.
Did that impact the relationship? Like what led to the breakup that caused this sort of?
No, that actually had nothing to do with it. I actually was more authentically myself and more, I was actually enjoying the relationship because of the professional development. And I think that's the thing, is that so many people think that it's all separated, like career, relationship, family, physical, mind, like everything is separate. No, but it was all connected. Like when I'm happier in my career, I'm happier in my relationship. When I'm happier in my relationship with my family is better. So honestly, it wasn't. I was actually, by that time, I was kind of at the height of my career in Austin and that moment.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe I had more awareness that I wanted something more because of the professional development. And because I had tapped into my authentic self in my career at that point.
Yeah.
And
was your partner not as ambitious as you were?
Not necessarily. He had just relocated to Austin and was doing well for himself. So no, I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Okay.
I think it was a misalignment in values from the beginning that I wasn't aware of as an individual.
Got it.
And that just played out naturally.
Got it. So now you find yourself single.
Yep.
And were you guys living together at that moment?
We were living together. Yeah.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
So did you stay, or did he stay?
It was my house, so I ended up staying, and
Okay.
we did find him a house. I was in real estate, so obviously,
Got it. Got him resituated.
yeah.
So big shift in life. Now you're starting to question if you stay in real estate at this point?
Yeah. So it wasn't so much a real estate, because I did feel in that moment that I was aligned properly with my values and my career and the way I was connecting with people.
Okay.
So that worked. But what wasn't working is I felt like I had outgrown the city where I was living.
Got it.
I just felt like I had tested myself, right? Like I feel like life is a series of tests.
Okay.
And as you become more and more confident after every test, you push yourself more and more. You know, I think there's points where you reach maybe a level of happiness where you're like, okay, this feels right. But at that specific moment, I was 30. I had been in the city I was in for, let's say, 11 years. So that's quite a long time for a city.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, okay, as I got more clear on who I was and what I wanted a bigger challenge.
I see. And so for people who are listening to this and maybe questioning if they're stuck in life in some aspect, maybe more specifically with the city that they're living in, and that kind of couples with their career, maybe not the relationship. Are there any signs that you kind of in hindsight identified as to like maybe signals that could validate for you if you're having that kind of inkling of a feeling like, is it time for me to move? Like, should I stay here another 3 years? Should I try something else out? Like, what are some ways that somebody could kind of begin to navigate making a big shift like that, like moving to a new city? Like, when is it time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I as you asked me that question, I can't say there was a sign. I mean, maybe there was.
Is it internal?
It's an internal restlessness where
Bit of boredom.
A little bit of boredom, but I think I could have gone either direction. I think it could have either been I recreated myself again in that city,
right,
or I moved to a new city and recreated. So I don't think it was necessarily pertaining to the city, because I very much felt aligned with Austin, which was the city I was living in. But I do feel that it was ready to recreate myself in a new version.
You definitely needed to make some changes.
Something needed to be changed. Yeah, because it was a natural end, the relationship. And so that was a natural pivoting point to, do I recreate myself here? And I mean, I have to just add in that was when the travel competition came in and I applied and I got accepted. So that naturally was a very large test in life that I said yes. And I went on that journey and I came back a different person.
And were you looking for adventure? Like, had you, let's say, applied for other opportunities and that was the one that ended up landing, or how'd that come about?
No, that was, I mean, adventure is one of my core values, which I think understanding your core values is important. But I think with all that I had been doing with my career, that naturally pivoted into what I applied for with that contest.
Okay.
And yeah, it just so happened that I applied, and I wasn't looking for anything like that. But you know what? I take that back. My sister had actually moved to Spain to study abroad and learn Spanish, and I just felt like I needed that unique breakout moment in life that really tested me.
Got it.
And that just happened to be what showed up when I felt that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was.
So how long did that take place? Like from the time you guys, let's say, broke up to the time you're applying for this contest, and then the time you get accepted, and then kind of walk us through what happens from there.
Yeah. So I it was probably 3-4 months from when we broke up, and then we were on our last trip that we had planned for a wedding together in St. Thomas. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we went on the trip, came back. I saw a post on social media for applying for the contest.
Okay.
Went for it, and completely my path in life shifted right after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And had that not taken place, what do you think you would have done as an alternative?
It's a great question. If I had to choose, right, like one of my favorite quotes in life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. So for anybody that's out there that's struggling, that is looking for, what the next chapter of their life, like, I think we have to take a proactive role in our life of creating who we want to be. And so had I not had that opportunity, I think I would have,
would you have moved anyway? Like, would you maybe
I think moving was on the horizon. Okay. I just didn't know where.
Got it.
And so I had gotten clear on my values 3 years earlier. So I knew what I was looking for, which was adventure, connection, community. And so then when I went on this travel competition, I came back, and what was cool about it is that I got to actually experience all the cities that I would have considered moving to.
Okay.
in those
months.
In those months, yeah, exactly.
So just so we're clear, you applied to be a host of a TV show?
It was an online travel contest, which conveyed as social media posts and videos and all that. So yeah.
Got it. And what cities were you able to visit, and kind of what was your overall, I guess, experience?
Yeah, it was
in hosting
31 cities in 6 months, over 100,000 miles. And it was everything from Thailand to Hawaii. So it was mostly domestic, but a few international spots, which was super cool. But they wanted more international, but I was thankful that it was more domestic because I got to explore the cities, which is why I chose New York.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So one of the cities was New York, and you kind of fell in love, or how they?
Growing up in a city, I grew up in Chicago, and so I was looking for a city that had history, that had culture, that had community, that had experiences. And I just got back from there, which was funny. It was my first trip, and it was February, and it was like massive snowstorm.
Oh,
but
brutal time to go to New York.
Exactly. Yeah. But I still was excited about it because, Austin's a newer city. It was, a mid-sized town. So I was just wanting something bigger.
And what year was this?
2013 to 14.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the financial crisis had already happened.
Yeah, it passed.
Kind of recovering.
Exactly.
Things were kind of on the upswing again, so to speak.
Yep.
So you're doing the travel hosting. That's, I'm assuming, like a contractual type.
Yeah. Independent contractor.
So you discovered New York as being the next step. And did you, in fact, end the travel contest and move to New York?
It took me a little bit to get my career set up, and
so you had to transition.
Yeah, I had to transition. Right? Wow, exactly.
That must have been tough, having your kind of portfolio and the relationships you built in the real estate market in Austin, and having to start from scratch. Or did you have any?
Yeah, so that was interesting because when you
don't forget about your wine.
Yeah, I know. Let's just have a wine break here. So cheers.
Cheers.
When you set up your life like that, and you have to just uplift everything. You have to sell everything. You have to put it in storage. You have to, whatever it is. My recommendation: don't put it in storage, because then you just pay the equivalent over a year of what is the value of that.
Like pussing out a little bit.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, oh, I might come back. This may not work.
The most liberating feeling that I've ever had in my life is selling off all my belongings. At least 95% of them. So that was complete liberation to just.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, let go of the things that I thought made me.
Right.
And it was funny because as I was deciding what to throw away and what to keep, I literally was like, you have to touch every item as you throw it away or put it in a garage sale or whatever.
Sure.
It's one of the most emotional processes. I'm sure you have experienced that.
You know damn well that.
So yeah, so I did that, and I moved, and for the next 4 years, I just.
And you stayed in real estate though, right?
So I did stay in real estate, and I had a connection that came through. I'm trying to think. So really I remember this moment distinctly. Mm-hmm. It was so weird to me to say, Bryan, you're going to leave Austin after 11 years, and you're going to go to New York, right? And I remember going to a brunch, and I was with some friends, and the first time those words were uttered out of my mouth, like, hey guys, I think I'm moving to New York. And I knew the universe was going to start to align after that. But it was speaking the words that are in your mind that become your truth, that become your reality. And from that point on, I just started saying, hey, I'm moving to New York in 5 months. I'm moving to New York in 3 months. whatever it was. And I could tell that people started responding to me. The universe started shifting.
Oh, I know a friend there. Like, I'll introduce you once you go.
Exactly. And so there was one person that had just moved to Austin that said, oh, I have a friend in New York. Why don't you talk to him? And he was part of the company that I ended up joining.
Wow.
And so we had a phone call, and he said, you know what? I know this lady who is the penthouse expert in New York. I want to introduce you. And it just was speaking that one word at brunch that I am going to move to New York that changed everything.
Started unlocking opportunities. Like all these doors started opening. Yeah. Really? Like literally and figuratively, right?
Exactly. But if you don't speak what's in your mind, or you don't speak what the truth is that you want, nothing else could happen.
So it makes you wonder, like, what other things do we think about during the course of our life?
Yeah.
Or feel this tingle or this inspiration of like wanting or desiring or aspiring for, but we don't articulate it. We don't like acknowledge it. And therefore those things never come into our life.
It takes a lot of courage.
Because it was months, you said, from the time you thought about it, probably during the trip, to the time you kind of started manifesting it and thinking more about it, to articulating it at the brunch, to then the opportunity starting to roll into the time you actually moved there.
Correct.
So
and that was a year, let's say.
Got it.
Okay. But, that's why it's important to speak what we want, because until we do that, it still takes time, but you have to get clear on what you want. You have to speak it, and then you have to allow the universe and the community around you to bring this into your life.
So I'm curious, just like for the audience's sake, for somebody, let's say, who is open to change.
Sure.
So they're not necessarily, stuck or hanging on to their existing kind of like, let's say, aspect of their life. But they're very confused as to what, I think with career in particular, it's quite challenging, I think, when you're in your 20s, maybe early 30s, because you grew up thinking like, I know I need to choose a career, but I don't really have a lot of context as to why I want to be a lawyer or why I want to be a nurse.
Correct.
But maybe some familial cultural pressures are kind of pushing you in that direction. Then you do it for a few years or 10 years or however long. Maybe things don't work out. Maybe you want to have a shift of direction. But it's like, I don't know what I want to do, right? I don't know. And I know you had that process happen maybe after real estate.
Yeah.
But do you have any advice for somebody who is at that moment? Like, would you recommend they stay in the same maybe industry, but just try like a different angle? Like maybe try to start their own business in that industry, or a different role, or just move to a different city and be with a different company?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a completely legit question. And I think there's different levels to it, right? Like there's the level of, one is the career aligned with who I am authentically. So I think you have to ask that, but then I think you have to say, okay, within a career, there's many different levels to a career, right? So let's say, this is a prime example. I wanted to be an architect.
When?
In high school.
Okay.
But my grades weren't good enough to be an architect. So then I said, well, what's next? Like, who am I? And one of my most important things in life is to connect with people. So I said, okay, I'm not going to be an architect, but can I still focus in the realm of real estate? Okay, well then let me focus on sales so I could interact with people and show them homes. It wasn't exactly what the vision was that I had for myself at, let's say, 15 to 18, if not before that. So maybe 13 to 18, I was always drawing homes and sketching on TCAD. But I think within every industry, there's many different roles that you could play.
Sure. There's a lot of different ways you can approach the same industry.
Exactly. It doesn't really matter what it is, right? It's the lens that you choose to look at your life. And so for this instance, I was in real estate. I was in the wrong, it wasn't even the wrong field. It was just, I wasn't applying myself to my career. I was trying to fit myself in a box that already existed. And, I said, Bryan, you really value community and connection and experiences. So why don't you create, the blog, and why don't you create an event, and why don't you bring community together and throw an event and a happy hour? And as soon as I did that, it realigned myself. And so I think no matter what industry you're in, there's different ways to approach it. If you're an independent contractor, significantly easier to change how you interact with your role of your job.
Right.
But if, you're in a corporate job, maybe it's just a shift. Maybe you're, I don't know what that would be, but you have to look at who you are as a core value. Do you need more analytical kind of components to your career? Do you need more social? Do you need more, whatever it is? I think you need to get clear on who you are first on the inside, and then align your career from there. So I didn't feel like I necessarily needed to move to make myself happy. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I focused on was, how can you, within your existing career, align yourself more properly? And so that's what I did first. Exactly. And then the second thing was, I felt I needed, after I got back from the travel competition, I needed to grow more than what I felt was available in
when you
Austin.
Say grow more, are you solely talking about like make more money, hold a position with like higher responsibility, be challenged more? Is that what you mean by grow more? Or like more reading, like more personal development, be around different type of people, like define that?
I think it was definitely, because any job you can make as much money as you want. So it wasn't necessarily the money component. It was more, I think I wanted to connect with bigger people. I wanted to
level up.
Level up. I wanted to connect on a mental level in a different way. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't anything against where I was. Those were some of the happiest years of my life. But you also have to ask yourself, am I comfortable and content? Which is nothing wrong with that. Or do I still want to grow?
Like, where's that comfort hurt? Like, comfort could be a great thing.
And it could be
a really bad thing.
A really bad thing. Mm-hmm. And
same with fear.
Exactly. And so I was 30 and I said, well, if you're going to make this change, you don't have much time, right? I think you have to look at life. And we're going to welcome Tuli to the show here.
Yeah. Tuli's joining us.
And I think you have to ask yourself, what stage of life am I in? And what do I want out of this stage? And so had I been in my 20s, maybe comfort was fine. Maybe in my 30s, your late 20s, you could take a little bit more risk, and your early 30s, you can. But once you get to your mid 30s, you need to start really focusing on, okay, where am I? Who do I want to be? Okay. And I know you'll disagree with that, right? Like, you could always change at any time.
Yeah. That's a whole other No, but it's interesting that you say that. And when I hear people take like a strong stance on those type of things, I really like to let those resonate and really like sink in, because I think a lot of the ways in which we think, mm-hmm. I question which ones are the ones that I like genuinely kind of came up with and that I created, going back to your point about creating, not finding.
Totally.
Versus the ones that maybe an employer told me at some point, or a teacher, or maybe my mom or my dad, or societal, or it could have been like a blog article. You have to be really like careful with these things, right? Because we don't realize how malleable or how much our brain absorbs.
Yep.
And we tend to take everything as like fact.
Yep.
So like, for example, like if I was to walk out and see that it's raining, right? I could let that rainy day on a Saturday when I wanted to enjoy a nice day at the park, like affect my entire mood, because I'm like, damn, I wanted to go to the park today, or I wanted to be outside and go for a run, and I can't.
Yep.
But in reality, it's not raining everywhere.
Correct.
It's just raining in the city that I'm in. So it's actually quite sunny and beautiful in 80% of the world, but it's just like that perception that I have from my vantage point, right?
Totally.
And so it makes me wonder, like, some of the beliefs that we carry, which are the ones that are in fact, let's say, predominantly true, mm-hmm. and which are the ones that maybe were instilled in me by someone else that had those beliefs.
Yep.
When in reality, they don't, they could be true, but not in all circumstances, right? So there could be an example where someone like yourself, like think of, I can think of a handful of founders, one being the gentleman who created McDonald's as an example, Ray
mm-hmm.
Kroc. I believe, I don't know the exact date, but I believe he started McDonald's like in his 50s.
Sure.
I think, right? Like, let's just say. Yep. You can Google that. But the point is, he probably took a tremendous amount of risk at that point in his life, when by definition in your 50s, you should have already had it figured out.
Risk averse.
He was selling whatever, fax machines or, going door to door, selling like kitchen appliances, whatever. And I mean, I don't agree necessarily with the business model of McDonald's for other reasons. However, nobody can deny the impact that's had on culture, society,
absolutely,
on gastronomy, et cetera, right? And so just as my personal perspective on that particular topic, I would advise from my perspective to not like pigeonhole oneself into any sort of like box or expectation. Like, I'm 33, I'm a female, like I live in this city, I should be doing this, and this in order to be like at par with like what society expects of me, right?
Absolutely correct.
I'll let you like take it away.
Yeah,
you get my point.
Totally get the point, and I agree 100%. I view our motivation in life like a rubber band. Like, the older we get, the more when we tap into our motivation and our authentic self, the further we'll go, because we realize like, wow, we want to make more stuff happen in a shorter amount of time.
Okay.
Right.
So the pressure of like,
so that pressure to perform. But once you find that, it doesn't matter what age you find that. All that matters is that you're connected to yourself.
I'm like the guy that's petting the cat while he's talking to you. All I need is like a long like cigar, I'm like, tell me more. That's amazing. Tell me more. Continue.
I thought it actually spelled a Thule fire, which is why.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought you were laughing because I was just like petting Thule while we're talking.
So, the fact that like some of the most successful people happen in their 40s or their 50s. So I don't think there's necessarily...
The universe doesn't know how old
you are. No, the universe doesn't know.
It doesn't care.
What matters is that you're tapped into your authentic self and what you need and what you want to make it happen. So it doesn't matter when it happens, but like I said, like the rubber band metaphor is the older you are, the more motivation you are once you finally do tap into it to make it happen and do it however you want in your own way. So inspiration could strike at any time. But what matters is that you are listening to yourself. And when it does strike, you have the connections and the platform and the springboard to really launch yourself in the way that you want. So yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't matter. But that was a societal...
Because it is. I mean,
that was a rule.
To your credit.
Yeah.
The general Western society, I can't speak much for like Eastern, and even that I could debate between Eastern and Western.
Correct.
Depending on how you're looking at the globe, what's East and West, right? Depending on what part of space. But just for simplicity, the Western world does in fact look at it like that. I don't know. I can't speak for the East, but I know that there's like in your 20s, and then like this is where you should be married by this time. And then even if you like zoom in even closer, if you're in a small town, you need to be married by 25 or 22. Where in New York, it's acceptable. Like by 40, you should definitely be married, right?
Correct. So let me add a little more context to this.
Yeah.
So my father's a wealth manager. He's been a wealth manager for 50 years. And it's been funny with me because I'm a very adventurous, curious, spontaneous person. And he said, by 30, you need to be settled and have your roots so you could start building your financial wealth for retirement.
Got it.
So it's not so much in...
runway.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it makes me laugh now because as we build this company, Umanity, he now says, okay, just by 40. Have your roots set and, start building.
Yeah.
So it's funny that it changes as I grow, but I'm committed to my dream. And this has been a dream, in
the making for a while.
It's been a while. And I've always felt there's something inside of me, which I could put context to that as well. But I've always felt there's something that I need to deliver to the world. I wasn't sure. And I know this isn't a normal feeling.
Yeah.
Some people... it's relationships. There's some people that it's to their community. For some people, it's to their family or to their partner or their children. So there's many different levels of that feeling that you have to contribute to something or someone.
Okay.
But for me, it was, I have a feeling I have something to deliver to the world.
So let's go there.
Sure.
Let's fast forward to that point. So you're in New York, you're doing real estate. You're like, seems to me like you're honing in more and more as time goes on to like your authentic self, right?
Correct.
With a connection, and the community, right?
Totally.
And so let's talk about the origin story for you, specifically with UmanityX.
Sure.
Kind of fast forwarding to the point where you leave real estate.
Yeah.
Where you realize I need to get out of this industry altogether, and I'm not reinvent myself within this industry or this
totally
box.
So it goes back to thinking that like, oh, I'm not happy in my career, right? Which was the case. I joined this.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I joined this lady who was a penthouse expert in Manhattan. I was gonna.
Sounds great on paper.
Yeah, exactly. And I got there, and these deals were taking 6 months to close, and I was like, "Where is my income?" Like, right? Yeah. And
so you were making no base salary at this
I
point.
had no base salary. And so I was very thankful for the opportunity to join a top company, join a top team. But
were you working under somebody? Like, did you have a mentor?
Yeah. So I was with a lady who had been in the industry 30 years, and she was looking to expand her team. So I worked under her. So mentorship is phenomenal. Like it's needed. If you want to excel in your career, you need to connect with people that can help you gain that insight, gain that momentum, and teach you the way of how they do it, so you could achieve your results more quickly. And
okay, so I have one question for you, not to interrupt you.
No worries.
But before we move on from that experience, because I think there's a lot of value there in having that experience and that relationship with this mentor.
Yeah.
If there was one takeaway that you learned that could be reapplied towards other aspects, like of your career going forward in that real estate experience being at the top level, let's say.
Sure.
That somebody who's listening to this could adopt just right now from listening to it.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the way she handled her day, maybe the way she went through the sales process, how she marketed, her daily routine, how many hours she worked. Like, what was it about that or here she worked? Like, what was it about that experience that you could extract and be like, hey, I'm going to take this over into my next venture or part of life?
So she was very systematic. Like, as far as performance and getting clear on the exact results that you wanted to generate, again, going back to creation, she got so clear on what it is that she wanted her final result to be, and then worked backwards. She reverse engineered her life. And we're talking homes that were $48 million. $48 million.
Wow.
$20 million. These weren't small homes. These were trophy properties.
Got it.
And it doesn't matter the size of the transaction. And a matter of fact, I think that's one of the most limiting beliefs that we have is when we go into an industry, we think, oh, I'm new. I need to start with leasing. And this is in my context of sales, but we need to start with leasing. Then we could work up to, in New York, the price is ridiculous. So
studios,
$800,000 studios.
Right.
Then to $1 million, and then to $5 million, but if you set a goal and you reverse engineer into what you want to be or what you want to do, it's just so much easier to set your KPIs, which are key performing indicators, on how you want to generate results. And there's so many different ways to, versus going through like 10 years of saying, oh, I need to become the expert and work up. You could say, this is who I want to be.
Reverse engineer.
And just
start
reverse engineer.
Exactly where you want to end up.
Exactly.
And then figure out what can I do today, this week, this month, this year that would get me on route to that target.
Exactly. Who do I have to connect with? In which way could I present myself in publicity and advertising and marketing to be that person? I think so many people think that we have to grow and evolve. And this is a mindset that's phasing out with our parents' generations.
Okay.
But with social media and with all the platforms that are available in this day and age, I mean, you said it. Like, to not make money in this day and age,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, because there's no limit on knowledge or
Correct.
access, assuming you have access to the internet.
But you have to want to have that desire to search out that information, to ask the question. I could literally track my personal development career with questions.
That's really interesting.
Because every question led me to
a blog post about that or something. We need that.
Challenge accepted.
The world needs to see
but
that.
I could literally trace the line from one question to the next in my growth. And so if you're asking, and we went, so this lady that I worked for actually took me back to Austin, ironic, for a personal development weekend with a coach. And
like real estate specific?
Yeah. No. It was just
general,
business specific. Okay. He was actually the coach that coached Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is the book you and I connected over on personal development.
Wow.
He never wanted to take the fame for that, but that's a whole nother story.
Wow.
So he said, and this is actually a fact, like the future is about asking the right question. If artificial intelligence could take you into any place you want to be,
right?
And we talked about this before,
yeah.
That means you have to ask the right question to get the answers that you're seeking.
That's going to determine like the outcomes of people's like lives. I mean, obviously there's some other factors, but like they said, if you hand Google to a kid who's in Somalia,
yep,
right, and you hand Google to Bill Gates,
mm-hmm.
and you track what they're searching for over the course of a month or a year,
yep,
solely based on what they're inputting into Google,
exactly,
will dictate what they're inputting, which dictates what they think about, which dictate what emotions they have and what they act on, which we all know, like,
determines your outcome,
creates a reaction, right?
Yep.
I think that's like Newton's law.
Yeah.
So you're I agree with you completely on that. And so how do you think people can think better? How can we input better? How do we assume humbly that where we're at today, even, it doesn't matter what level you're on, right? So, double, triple, quadruple your net worth. Doesn't matter if you're, starting back in your early 20s and you just don't have any idea what direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
How would you suggest, like, knowing what you know now, how do you think about like what how do you challenge what you're thinking about and work on upgrading your thoughts?
Yeah.
What are some hacks for people to level up, like what they're thinking about?
What they're thinking about. I mean, God, that's a great question.
And I asked you a question that I already have an answer for.
I mean,
it doesn't mean it's the answer, but it's an answer.
It's an answer. And I'm going to have to default to the ways you've taught me. No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, you have to continually enter new insights and information and data into your mind to expand your consciousness, because as humans, we operate out of the same realm of consciousness that we've always known. And so we think we have the answer and we just keep searching for that answer. I mean, that's the definition of stuck.
It's like saying a bad pattern.
A bad pattern, right? Yeah. And so we think we have all the answers we need. So we keep,
we always assume, like, even if it's indirectly, like subconsciously, that we kind of like know it all.
We know it all.
Like I'm just, there's nothing that I'm lacking in terms of knowledge or information.
Exactly.
Right? But in reality, the truth could be very much so, just like the way a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old thinks they know it all. Like us as an adult, we see that 10-year-old and like we all know that they have a lot more to learn.
Exactly.
But when they're a 35-year-old man or a 40-year-old woman, it's like, I definitely know. I
have the answers.
I'm not a little kid anymore.
And that's fine if you think that, but you'll be operating out of the same knowledge, expecting different results and not getting new results and wondering why that is.
Right.
Frustrated, confused, and once you're frustrated and confused, which are key indicators, if you have anxiety, if you are uncertain, if you have doubt, if you have fear, those are all signs that you need new information in your life, because you're not finding the answer you want to generate the outcome that you want.
So it almost could be a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing.
That frustration could be, hey, this is a sign that I'm getting rerouted on my GPS. Like, nobody gets frustrated, right, when they're trying to go to a destination and you put something in your GPS and it says, rerouting, like you took the wrong road. Like you don't like hit the screen, or you don't get like frustrated. You're just like, assuming you're not like 30 miles off course, right? But I mean, the point is that it's a beautiful thing to reroute.
Absolutely beautiful. And the sooner you could reroute, the better you are in life, because that means you're repositioning your questions. Like, that question didn't serve me, but I mean, let's be real. Out of all the information in the universe, what percentage do we actually know?
Right.
0.000.
Too many zeros.
20 zeros and a 1. Like, what we know to survive on is so small compared to the answers out there. And so we have to keep asking questions and that's what.
Well, not to cut you off, but it's to evolve ourselves.
Yeah.
But also on a more macro level, to evolve the species.
Correct.
Right? We have to remain hungry, and we have to remain open and humble.
Totally.
To new experiences, to new ways of thinking, to questioning a lot of the old ways, even within ourselves, right? Because you could have worked up for many years to get to a certain point in your life, and you're like, oh, I finally made it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have this like false sense of like, I don't need to keep improving because I have that house, I have that spouse, I have that like life, that income, that car. And then what you don't realize is the world is still evolving and changing.
Totally.
And then 6 years later, you're like, wait a second, like my relationship's kind of bad. My career's not going so great.
I'm in a house in a suburb that I don't even want to be in, but that's what they told me to do. Yeah.
Right? But it's because so much change has happened in that 6 years. And now you're in a position where you're completely having to reinvent, once again. So,
I mean, I'm going to challenge you. Like, what are some questions that showed up in your life in your 20s? And I'm going to share the same.
Yeah.
I mean, for anybody that's watching and listening, you should question everything in your life. So what are like, I'll give one and you give one.
Sure.
All right. So,
and Tuli
give one. Why do I snore?
You can't even really like see her in the video.
But one of the questions I asked is like, how can I have a better relationship with my family? Or how can I,
those are your questions?
Yeah. Like my mother and I had a lot of conflict, right? And I asked, why? Why do I have conflict with her?
Mm-hmm. Or
what was another one? Like monogamy. Am I made for monogamy or not? That's a very modern question to ask. Right. And I think that we have to ask
but maybe it wasn't when you were in your early 20s or teens.
No, in those,
not as much.
But I think as you get into your 30s, especially later in life, well, by later, I mean late 30s, like questioning the norms of society.
Maybe it's healthy in general.
It is healthy.
Always question everything.
I think you should question everything.
Like just even if it's weekly practice, daily. For me, even on a daily level, and of course I've evolved like we all have, right? I've evolved, I've changed the way I approach things is different. But I really, at this point in my life, I've never spent so much time and care and like detail and attention to the way I put thought to paper with my daily intention and to-do list.
Correct.
Because I'm very cognizant of the fact that everything that I have in my life today is a reflection of how I've thought in the past.
Correct.
Because the things that I thought in the past dictated what I worked on.
Yep.
Now, granted, there's always factors that are outside of our control.
Totally.
So if I want to open up a lemonade stand and I do it in the middle of winter in Alaska and I don't get any sales, I can't necessarily say that maybe the lemonade stand was a bad business.
Yep.
It's just the fact that maybe the market was wrong, right? Or the timing was wrong, right?
Yep.
So if I would have done that same lemonade stand outside of a baseball stadium in the middle of summer, sales could have skyrocketed, right? So there always are factors that need to be aligned to make things go through. But my point is that I'm very, 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 I almost like, I have like multiple filters on myself when I'm thinking about what I want to do today. Yep. Because I'm doing that kind of reverse engineering that you talked about earlier.
Yep.
And I'm saying like, I know that it's impossible for me to do everything that I possibly, let's say, could come up with or conjure in a single day. It's just not going to happen, right? Because I need to sleep. I need to, let's say, shower. I need to use the restroom. I need to eat. There's going to be things that are going to eat up some of my day.
Correct. And I know this, so I'm going to ask him to share how you structure your day.
All right, cool. Yeah, a bit of a deviation.
Small deviation, but that's
where the magic happens.
If anybody could pick up on this, on how to schedule a day, it's a phenomenal exercise.
Yeah, so I'll try to do it in like a 5-minute synopsis, right? Because
let's do it in 2 minutes.
How deep you want to go.
I'm going to question everything.
Okay, cool. So first and foremost, I would think about knowing what I know now, the things that I need to eliminate.
Yeah.
Right? Because the things that I would do or put my time and energy on that would deter me from doing the things that I really should be doing are almost like my enemy. So the first thing I want to do is clear the enemy, right? So think of yourself almost like a chef, and your job is to make a beautiful, amazing dinner for a whole bunch of people, right? The last thing you want to do is start that shift with a fucked up kitchen, right? Like dishes everywhere, you can't find anything. You got other people in the kitchen, furniture, like you need to have a clean kitchen so that you can literally go in. Once you have that intention, You can grab the right pots, the right pans, the right stuff in the refrigerator. Mentally, you're feeling good. You have an ambiance, a setting, everything's clean. So the foundation is critical.
Yep.
So the way that I would think about, let's say, planning or organizing my day is not, and again, it's different because everybody has like a different role and different like obligations. You know, some people have to take their kids to school in the morning. I don't have to take my kids to school in the morning. I have to take Tulip for a walk, right? But my point is that I think about my day starting at the top down is input, output.
Okay.
So in a perfect scenario, I devote the morning to input, which going back to what we talked about earlier, which is filling my mind with new thoughts, new ideas, new perspectives around the general subject matters that are important in my life.
Okay, pause you right there.
Yeah.
How do you choose the topics?
Okay. So in my own personal reflection, I do a kind of a stoic type of practice where at the end of every day, I take a moment, whether I'm in the shower or maybe I'm laying in bed right before I go to sleep, or if I have any kind of moment in the bathroom where I just have a few minutes to myself, I literally treat myself as if I'm my own I'm my own CEO, I'm my own manager. So I critically assess myself as to what I'm thinking about, the goals that maybe I had set for the year. Like, am I in line or am I starting to deviate, right? The value in which certain things that I've set out to do have on the future impact of my life.
Okay.
And the reason I value that so much is because everything that I have or don't have today or challenges is because of my old self. So I either have my old self to thank or my old self to blame.
Absolutely
right?
Correct.
So I'm starting to think now more, not like where I want to be next month or where I want to be at the end of the year. I'm thinking like Luke at 50.
Yeah.
Like, what is that guy going to need from me? Go ahead.
That's so important to acknowledge. And I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
But for people that are working on personal development, so much of the focus that we have in life is on the future. But what we don't realize is so much of the things holding us back are from our past. And that's a whole nother topic. But
yeah,
I think that's what we have to really look at when we're looking at who we want to become, is what experiences that caused us a traumatic emotion in our body, that our body stores that emotion and is holding us back. So that's great that you acknowledge both the past and the future.
And the future as to where I am today.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think we have to just acknowledge that. So
absolutely. Yeah, great point. So going back to, I guess, what I was touching on earlier is I do have the luxury at this point in my life where I have complete freedom of schedule, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur. I work from home. It wasn't always like that. I've had, 35, 40 jobs in my life, like jobs, like, 9 to 5, night shifts, graveyards, like sporadic schedule,
yeah.
Right. I've
model.
I have to walk a runway today. Like, God damn it. I got to be in like bed with a
Let's
model.
just be honest.
Yes, it's that.
Got it.
So I've just had so many, really, I've almost lived like 35 lives, right? Because not too many people that are factory workers get to experience walking down a runway in New York.
Totally.
Not a lot of people who walk down runways in New York get to experience what it's like being a factory worker.
Exactly.
Right? And then when you start adding on like coaching summer NBA basketball camp, and then you add on, being a salesperson at a call center. And then you add on then you add on like volunteering with, refugees that are coming over with like super serious life trauma events that took place. And you're literally like on the receiving end of that soul who's going through like a complete new transition, having lost family members, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers. And then they're just their whole life's been disrupted. And they're just like in your hands because the organization can't give them that one-on-one attention. Yeah. And you're absorbing that emotional transition.
Yeah,
as a young person. Heavy, dude. Heavy. We can talk about that maybe at another moment, right?
Yeah.
This is your podcast, but so going back to the way you organize your day. So the morning is all about it's all about input.
Yep.
Right. And so now if you're somebody who realistically is out there that, let's just say, has a standard 9 to 5 job, I would just suggest it's really important to get in something really quality in the morning, right? To start your day.
Definitely.
So that starts from the night before.
Okay.
Being intentional about when you go to bed. Granted, if it's the weekend, you're going to have things going on. Be social, do your thing. but on a Monday through Thursday dynamic, you definitely want to invest those days in yourself. Totally. This would be my suggestion, especially if you're not really at a place in life that you want to be. Let me let her down.
Yeah, she's turning around a lot.
And so, yeah, so I would just start off small, like, like baby goals, like mini steps, right? So I would want to, let's say if I needed to be at work at 9, maybe I would wake up at, let's just say 6:30. I'm just using like a very generic example.
Okay.
Do whatever you need to do to kind of get yourself calibrated. I know whether you're fasting or you're not fasting, or you showered the night before, or you need to shower in the morning, whatever the case may be, just be intentional about getting yourself like organized, and just find a space to carve out 30 to 45 minutes, because you don't want to say 30 and then it ends up being 10.
Longer, yeah.
Right? So you want to say maybe 45, and then if things kind of happen, you still have that 30-minute window, and treat yourself to invest in yourself.
Yep.
And pick a topic of your life. Like maybe you want to get a better understanding of spirituality.
Okay.
Right? Maybe you want to learn more about meditation.
Definitely.
Maybe you want to learn how to make money.
Yep.
And you hear everybody being an entrepreneur, but it's like, how do I become
How
an entrepreneur?
do you make money?
Right? So Google.
How do you schedule your day?
Yeah, going back to Google, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, what are the best top 10 books on entrepreneurship?
Mm-hmm.
So like start there, right?
Yep.
Buy one. They're like $10, $12,
yeah.
$15, right? Reach out to somebody. So then from there, you identify something that you have an interest in or you want to develop or grow in. And you literally like turn your phone off. You don't have on notifications. I personally never have on notifications.
So important.
Nobody can call me and access me right now. Like literally anybody could be calling me. I would have no idea. I'm not even looking at my phone. So I'm super focused on what we're talking about.
Yep.
And I think you'll find it like really, really, really powerful and life-changing. If you're not somebody who likes to read or don't find that entertaining, it depends on what you read though, because what I found is like every book has a different feeling.
Yeah.
So like fiction, nonfiction. So I would recommend people read a lot of nonfiction to begin with.
Correct.
Right. And then
and real quick, choose a platform that speaks to you. It could be audio.
Yeah, that was my next
I love audiobooks. I need to hear audiobooks.
Exactly. So I would agree with you. So like, get that going. If you're a person that likes to take notes on a pad and paper, or you want to do that with on your computer on a Google Doc, just give time to yourself to think, listen to what they say, think about how that could possibly apply to your life. Don't expect the whole process to kind of happen overnight.
Totally.
Just kind of set out like, let's say a micro goal of like, you know what, over the course of the next month, I'm going to finish this book. Or if you're like super high level and you're really into it, this week I'm going to commit to finishing this book, right? And you don't even have to finish the book. You literally could go through a book that has 12 chapters and you could say like, I'm going to just pick the top 5 ones that interest me the most, circle them, read those 5 and put the book away. And maybe at another point in your life, you'll come back. Maybe you won't.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I didn't even get to half of how I organize my.
No. So
so
I think it's important. And what I've learned from you is to spend the morning with input, the afternoon giving to people.
Taking actions, getting on
taking
calls,
actions,
producing, making,
and
sales.
Every day achieving 2 to 3
That's right.
major milestones for the day, right?
That's right. You can't set out to accomplish 12 things for the day.
Exactly.
Because maybe you can, but I can guarantee you that item number 9, 10, 11, and 12 won't have as much impact on the long term of your life as item 1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
So you've got to get, going back to what I said earlier, you have to get super clear on what are out of the 12 things I want to do. I need to take out the trash. I need to do my laundry. I need to pay my phone bill. I need to call my mom. I need to, stock up on groceries, but then I need to make that sales call. I need to make a pitch deck. I need to give a little bit of thought to the strategy of my podcast. Oh, I need to hire somebody to make me some new marketing materials, whatever the case may be, right? Out of all those 12 things, a few of them, like 5 years, could change your life in a dramatic way.
Totally.
Taking out the trash is not going to change your life. I know it needs to be done. You can't like live in a pigsty, but you need to definitely don't compromise numbers 1 through 3 because you just got you were so efficient at doing items 7 through 12.
Yeah.
They cannot come in the way of 1 through 3. No. And that's why you have the highest probability of finishing 1 through 3 in the morning or the early part of the day before the life kind of spins out of
That's
control?
a huge point. Like when I first got to New York, I had this real estate coach, and he said, do the most difficult things first thing, because once they're done, you can enjoy the rest of your day, whatever that is.
Got a win.
You have a win. Right. But when you mentioned this, like when you rack up wins early, it gives you even more, it probably releases more endorphins to do even more.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So the early wins, which are you accomplishing the things that you've determined are the most important out of your priority list. And the way you define most important, again, is the things that can have the most profound impact on the long term of your life, right?
Correct.
So taking out the trash versus, I don't know, building a pitch deck to sell your idea, right?
Yeah.
Like that could, building that business could change the course of your life.
Correct.
So I forgot what we were talking about, but
just the milestones that you could hit in your day and the value that they would have.
Okay, so the point is that it also reduces anxiety.
Yeah.
Because when I feel like I'm behind and I don't feel like I've accomplished those things,
yep.
Towards that latter part of the day, I don't have that like feeling of like satisfaction, or that I had a great day, or maybe I start feeling like the weight of, like the day got me, right? I didn't get the day.
Correct.
But if I have that day where I got items 1 through 3 out of the way, then I can like kind of almost stop the day and really enjoy my family. I can enjoy my friends. I can kind of take it easy if I need to.
Yep.
Or if I want to, like you said, I want to like push through and have like a monumental day and hit items 4 and 5.
Yep.
I have that.
You'll feel so good after that.
And I'll just go for it and do it. Some days, dude, I'll work. And it's not work for me because it's just, I'm like so in tune with what I'm doing. I'm like a musician. You would never say like, oh, like Mick Jagger worked, he was making music he worked for 20 hours.
No,
he's jamming out.
Yeah.
He's super happy.
Playing music.
And maybe he's frustrated because he can't get the chord right, or, he has like a certain vision for the way he wants like this album to be. But overall, he's not like working the way that a traditional 9 to 5 person would think, like, oh my God, like I have 10 more minutes, like trying to get the clock to hurry up so you can get out of there. That's working 8 hours.
But when you tap into that flow,
that's it, dude. So for me, like literally I can, as you know, I can wake up at 4:10 in the morning to use the restroom for whatever reason. And I'm so excited to get back on the treadmill, whether it's reading, meditating, like working on something on my list, whatever.
Totally.
I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm so glad I had to wake up right now at 3:38. I can't even tell you, dude, so many days that I've woke up at 2:30 in the morning, and I'm like, thank God that I woke up at 2:30 in the morning.
You're one of the only people I know that has done that.
And by 7 in the morning, dude, I'm literally like, I've already done all 3 of my things.
Yeah.
And I've already read for an hour.
It's crazy. The only person I know.
But then, maybe
that I know, but I'm sure there's plenty of people.
I'll take a nap, or maybe that day I'll go to bed at 8:30 or something, like, you know what I mean? Because I do get tired.
Yeah.
I am human.
Your body only has, no, it's true. You only have an X amount of hours, then your body's like, your brain, more than anything, your brain, then your body is.
But overall, it's all flow, right?
Correct.
So, anyway. So getting back to your story with UmanityX, right?
Sure.
Let's dive right into that moment, right?
Cool.
So now you're thinking about festivals, connection, events, community.
Yeah. So there was, God, I mean, I hate to go into this moment because it's dark, but I think it needs to be addressed. Like there's a lot of things in life that we're not talking about. And I had 3 friends who took their lives, right? They lost their lives to suicide. And it was over the span, they didn't know each other, and it was over the span of, let's say, 7 years. So it wasn't, it was, and every time it caught me off guard just as much as the first time. And I'm just like, there's something not right in society right now. There's something wrong with humanity. And I think we see it going on in the world right now. It's unfortunate. And, even at the most micro level right now, I have friends all over the world that I'm having conversations with. And there's just an energy from Australia to California to New York to, all over, that the higher level of what's going on in the world is impacting our well-being. And so that happened to me.
That are out of our control.
It's out of our control, but it doesn't mean it doesn't impact our mental health or our mental well-being. And I just reached a point where I was like, this isn't how it should be. People that are amazing human beings, we're talking venture capitalists. The last one that I lost to suicide had probably made several $100 million.
Several
$100 million.
Yeah.
He had traveled the world, filled storage units, like 7 or 8 storage units with antiques from around the world to build this most amazing house, and just didn't have the community, didn't have maybe the purpose. Something was out of alignment. And I know there's also a lot to go on with the mind and chemical imbalances, but my sense is that there was something missing. Yeah. And someone that was so successful, just something didn't seem right to me. And I said, from my family to my friends, like there was just something was out of balance. And I said, I want to create something that allows people every year to check in with themselves. And so that was going to be Humanity Fest. And so we would, my intention was to create a festival in Times Square where we'd have breakout sessions like South by Southwest, and we could grow, we could develop, we could communicate, we could have conversations. It would just be one of those, like you go to an annual physical every year, you could check in with yourself and upgrade or up level the conversations or the topics, the input that you wanted to have, because a lot of us don't do this on a daily level or even a weekly or a monthly level, maybe once a year.
Right. Maybe when we need it the most, it's not available.
Exactly. And so if I could create something that if just at once a year allowed people to connect to themselves and a community at a deeper level, then that would be amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I lived in New York. I lived by Times Square, and I said, how amazing would it be if we could shut down Times Square and bring humanity together to celebrate both our weaknesses and our strengths? Because I believe that what it means to be human is to struggle, right? Life is a fucking struggle.
And there's so many commonalities that we all share, even though we all feel so unique and different. And like that guy's, he looks different than me, has a different career than me.
Exactly.
But in reality, at our core, there's a lot of the same needs and wants and desires and fears. Like we share a lot of
as a species, we share so many similarities that we don't even acknowledge.
We don't acknowledge it, right?
And I think if we could just acknowledge that we're all struggling in life and that we all want something better for ourselves and for the world, we'd be so much better. And so
that was your intention.
That was my intention. I said, what, but shutting down Times Square is a massive undertaking, even though I felt I could have done it. But I even had to, if we're being real for a moment, I had to ask myself a question of like, was this ego? Like, is it Bryan that's going to do something big? Or, I called my sister who is a psychologist, and I was like, I don't know whether this is my ego talking or this is like authentically what I want to do. And she goes, well, do you think you can do it? And would it be a benefit to other people? And I said, yeah, I do believe I can do it. And I know that it would impact other people. And she said, then it's not ego. It's if you have an authentic passion and you know you can do it, then it's a sincere, authentic contribution to the world.
You should go for it. So what happened with your process in exploring this idea that you had of this feeling?
I started getting once I spoke it, like I shared it with my friend, Pino, and he said, and he said, I have connections with the Rockefeller family and, with the Times Square Alliance where they do events and stuff like that. So again, once I spoke it, the pieces started coming together. But it was just such a massive undertaking. And then I spoke with a few of my earlier coaches from when I moved to New York. And they said, why don't you start with something small? Like perfection and, your big dreams are going to just kill like whatever it is you're trying to do. And so they said, why don't you just focus on something that you could take action with? Like, why don't you start with a weekly meetup? And then if you get 10 people, do it a second week or whenever and grow it from there.
Right.
So I got so focused on, and this is so important for people that are focused on like these big dreams or perfection, like that's just going to take us down and cripple us.
Because there's a lot of people watching this that are likely entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
or they want to be entrepreneurs.
Correct.
That's just the definition we give, or the term to these individuals, but it's really people that want to manifest
totally
and bring forth.
Exactly.
Right? They
and
want
so
to create something that doesn't exist.
Exactly. And so at the end of the day, I think we need to realize we want to create and we want to contribute. And that doesn't have to be at a massive level. You could start every day by creating and contributing to one or two people. And if they
in your family,
at
right?
work,
that needs
you could start I could have started a weekly meetup to help people at work. And we talked about personal development, and I brought in speakers.
And still be making impact.
It still impacts. So it doesn't really matter. But I think taking action and just contributing to society is what matters. And I actually had a lot of struggle with that, between my desire to do something bigger like humanity, and just contributing in the most basic way.
So it's like these two, not opposing forces, but there's like the grandiose like side of you that
totally
sees the full vision.
Correct.
And then kind of your present day reality, which is like, who can I help today? Like, how can I formulate a little group, like dinner party tonight, like this type of thing.
Totally. And so I think that's what delayed me the most, was wanting to fulfill the vision I had, but taking action. And so I had to bridge that gap.
A step at a time.
Exactly. And so finally, you intercepted me at a point when we had drinks.
Yeah, so talk about that. You realized that there was this passion, or this idea that stemmed from the loss of three friends.
Yeah.
Which was, undescribable. I can't imagine, having lost friends to suicide as well. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't.
And you're left feeling like there's got to be something that could have been done, that I could do, that could have happened differently. Would this not be the outcome that is
exactly
realized, right?
And
so, take it away.
No, so I had those feelings. I went through that experience. I wanted to create something that impacted the world at a deeper level, hopefully to allow community to come together and people to find purpose and passion and community. To the day I die, will believe that purpose and community are the keys to a happy life. When you know what you're doing and you're doing it with passion, and you're connecting with the community that lifts you up and allows you to fulfill this purpose, I think that's when magic happens, the harmony of life. And so, so we had connected. You.
How did that happen? I don't recall. Just I'm moving to New York.
You were just like, hey, we wanted to try living in New York. We're here. We don't know how long we're going to be here because it's the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And why don't we meet up for a drink? So I was like, cool. Haven't seen you in 13 years, around there.
That's crazy.
We had spoken, but there was definitely an extended period that we hadn't. And
we weren't close.
Yeah.
We didn't know really what was going on.
What was the most current thing? Yeah, no, definitely not. So I said, let's meet for a drink. And one drink turned into 9 hours of conversation. Literally, it was from like 6:30 p.m. till 4 a.m. Like, it was
kind of like what we're about to do right now.
Exactly.
We're cut this off in 30 minutes.
And we just kept going and talking, and we went from like one rooftop in New York to another rooftop, and it was a great night. And I think we realized after that, like, we shared the same passion.
Right.
And you were in Mexico City before that? Were you coming directly from Mexico City?
We were actually in LA.
Okay.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
Just for a quick weekend. And then, I'm really bad at this.
Yeah, you were coming from somewhere, but I remember you trying to create something similar, which we discovered in our conversation, which was Mind Foodie.
Well, Mind Foodie actually had taken place right around the time we founded 2020, like a few years after that.
Mm-hmm.
But to keep the focus on what you're saying. But that was something that I had done, which is basically allowing people who had the common interest of personal development that were doing it, on their own, reading books, watching videos, allowing them to come together to our office. We had a really kind of cool, sleek office that we were renting. It was like a co-working space. And there was, like a communal area with like a long table, and it was very, like concrete floors and exposed beams. And there was like a glass, like conference room with like a huge touchscreen TV. And so I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we brought people in? I'd bring in like food, hors d'oeuvres, tapas, wine, put on some cool like lounge music, just kind of stemming from experience I've had in other parts of the world. Dim the lights down a little bit, let people out of a place, like a sanctuary, to come after like a Tuesday at work, right? And change up their routine. They could kind of like mingle, have a cocktail, unwind a little bit for 30 minutes. And then once they kind of like got the edge off, we would go into this like glass conference room, and I would put on like personal development videos, literally teaching them about mindset, about productivity, about entrepreneurship, sales, whatever. And they would almost watch it like a movie. Because the lights would be off, everyone's got their drink in hand, the popcorn, that whole thing. And then we would take a break after 30 minutes. And then finish the second half. And then afterwards, it would kind of open back up into like a social hour, but it changed the context of the conversation.
What people wanted to talk
Because now it's like, because everyone was trying to get to that next level. Everyone was trying to learn and grow. And the fact that you were doing that with other people, I noticed like really changed the dynamic of both networking and personal development. Both became better by having each other. Right? And so I never experienced, I had so many struggles in my life with selling things. It was always like a sell, right? It was always like convincing somebody to buy something. Because I've done so many phone sales in my life, right? Like literally probably made 10,000 phone calls selling everything from electricity to magazine subscriptions to you name it, right? Gym memberships, credit
insurance.
Insurance.
I was there for part of that.
Real estate. Like, it's insane. So my point is that the majority of the things I've sold have been so difficult. That whenever I would sell something that was just like people throwing money at me, it kind of caught me off guard. So when I put together this like flyer about, and you've seen it, the Mind Foodie flyer with like, hey, we're going to talk about these topics, and you're going to get tapas and networking and personal development. And I literally made it on a Word doc, and I just like put it out to the people that were like sharing the co-working space with me. And I sent out the email, I hit send, and I kind of just get back to work thinking like, nothing's really going to happen. I'm going to have to go out and find another way. And then I literally have like knocks on my office door, and people are like with their checkbook, like, who do I make it out to? And I'm like, what the fuck? And we're talking about like hundreds of dollars, right? To attend a 4-week, 1 day a week video, like literally watching videos that are available online together. And I was like, wow, like that's really cool. Like people are willing to spend money in order to force themselves into learning, into growth, and doing it with other people. And it was literally there's only a few things I've done in my life where like literally money's just like attacking me. And that was one of them.
That's so fascinating. I mean, God.
So that was my kind of origin story. That happened back in like 2000, I don't know, maybe 15.
And so we came together, we had these conversations, and then just connecting the dots for everybody listening, like you called me and you're like, we need to work on a business together. Like
after we had met,
after we had reconnected and discussed our passion and where, life had taken us, it's like, let's create something together. And
I think I caught you off guard because I remember you asking me at some point, you're like, what's your intention behind this? Right?
I was like, I feel like that question is never going to leave. like as we continue to develop, it becomes better and better and I'm better. And I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, what are we trying to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's good.
It's a legit.
You really need to know, what someone's motives are.
And so, it was a process, right, for us to create UmanityX. It was probably, we started that in May of 2019. And then let's fast forward. It was 3-4 weeks before we even had the aha moment of what humanity would be. And I think that like in order to change the world, to impact the world at the greatest level, we had to focus on ourselves. And only through self-education and self-improvement could we become better contributions to humanity.
I'm so glad that you said that. because the timing couldn't have been more epic.
Yeah.
Because you actually you brought something to my attention with regards to when I first realized that.
Yeah.
And that was, I won't deviate too far, but when I was much younger and I did that experience volunteering, like helping the refugees acclimate into the U.S.
Totally.
At that point in my life, I was super lost. I mean, I was like, should I be a fireman? Should I go to the Peace Corps? Should I try to get a job at Wall Street? Like, I mean, I was all over the board, right?
Totally.
And so I'm like lost applying for this gig to be an American friend. And what I ended up realizing is that the level of frustration that I had with wanting to give, but I didn't have that much to give myself, both with money and both with intellect and experience. Like, I was very green, very rookie.
Totally.
And so my intentions were good, but I didn't really have like the resources to like give to what I really wanted to achieve. And so I found myself in a place of like, damn, like I can't give this guy more money. I can't pay his rent. I can't buy him a car. I can't help him fly to go see his family. I felt so constrained because I could barely take care of myself.
Totally.
And I was looking at the guys and the girls and the women of the world that were making the most impact.
Yep.
And it's because they were at a level that they had realized successes in their life, the Oprahs of the world, the Bill Gates, that they were able to make tremendous amounts of impact because they were good people at their core. And so it like dawned on me that the solution isn't go join the Peace Corps so you can hand out like bags of rice and plates and this whole thing. I mean, yes, you can do that on the journey, but if I really wanted to make impact and difference, I would have to go back to the drawing board, work on myself, which is the U in humanity, right?
Exactly.
Work on myself. And if I became more, if I elevated my thinking, my perspective, my credibility, my experience, all those things, then I in turn could attract a different level of people. I could rally them around a different cause, which is now like UmanityX, and I could bring that forth. So I'm still the guy working on this project with you that wanted to have impact on that individual refugee's like life, or those kids' life that I was teaching how to play. Like, I was just basically chaperoning them while they played soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, some degree of impact, but not that significant.
Totally.
And now I'm just channeling that in a much more sophisticated way that's more in line with who I am today and how I think.
Exactly.
Which isn't really how I think. I'm just stemming it off of how I've observed the great ones think through all my personal development.
Correct.
So I'm really just, I'm a regurgitation of the greats.
And they say that in life that nothing is really original. It's just a version of what somebody else has done. And that's okay. Like, but that was a big breakthrough moment for us when we went from Humanity Fest
to this digital
to UmanityX, because we had to come up with a name because we weren't a festival. We're a platform. And then we realized, like, you saw this advertisement where they cut one of the letters off, and it was like, let's call it Humanity because it was a little more unique.
Yeah.
And the
U was
cool. And the U was
U University. U as in you. You are a part of humanity.
It just all came together, and that was like such an aha moment for us. Is that anybody that wants to have an impact on the world, it truly comes from being the best version of themselves.
That's maybe the biggest takeaway of this episode, possibly.
Totally. The best version to their family, the best version to their community, the best version to their career and their community within their career that they work with, to society. So you can impact the world at any level you decide.
Right.
But if you're not the best version of yourself, if you're showing up with toxic motivation and
maybe your parents thinking.
Yeah, you're pulling a toxic mindset or a story from your past and contributing that back to society, like, that's just not healthy.
Right.
And once we've both started this journey, like, it's something you commit to. You have to continually commit to your mind. You have to continually commit to grow. You have to continually commit to asking the right questions on how you could get better answers for your life.
So how have you grown, with that being said? So since we started this concept of UmanityX and we set the mission, we got clear on the vision, we put some pen to paper, we created some pitch decks, we started actually, like, even though it's been semi-digital, we've kind of created this thing that we can now see. It's out of the mind and it's kind of in this like physical form.
Totally.
How's that process been for you? going through like literally like the whole process of like building a high growth tech startup, which is not something that's in your past experience. So you've had to evolve, expand, maybe be a bit uncomfortable at certain times. Kind of walk me through like the first few months in a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, as to like what you've experienced, and maybe, but I say it in a way that could benefit somebody else who has like an idea, maybe harboring, or they're just starting, and what you've kind of seen on the path to getting it to where we are today.
I could do that in one word, and that word's triggering. It's to put yourself outside of a comfort zone and have to continually expand your mindset and grow, not only to find a way to contribute myself, but to keep up with someone like yourself who is such a passionate individual and wanting to grow so quickly. Any person that's going on a new journey, it's going to pull up anything from your past that is holding you back. And so in one word, entrepreneurship, growth, expansion is triggering. Like that's just the reality.
And define triggering, just so people can understand what you mean by that.
It's just pooling every weakness. Let's see, how do I say this? You have a vision of who you want to be, but the vision of who you want to be is held back from your societal, familial upbringing, cultural, religious. And so when you're set on a path to growth, you're having to start to question everything you know yourself to be and how you do it. And the ways of how you exist all come to light very quickly.
Got it.
And so
it's kind of like if you're, I don't know, like a middle school, high school basketball player, and now you're trying to get into the pros, and then you step into the Bulls locker room, right?
Yeah, it's gonna.
During the Jordan era.
It's gonna make you realize. I need
to get my shit together. Like
real
the way
fast.
These guys tie their shoes. Is like with precision. Right?
Exactly. Everything down to the T. So every weakness,
you gotta like just. It's like this process. It's almost like going through the atmosphere, like as a rocket.
Totally.
Like you hit that shaking, moment, and everything just starts coming off, and like, but it's actually getting you to propel through into this other.
Exactly, and that's one of the greatest metaphors that we could use on a high growth or personal development journey.
Yeah.
Is it's gonna be a mirror to your face. It's gonna challenge everything you've known, but that's a sign of growth. When you start getting uncomfortable, when you start getting anxious, when fear shows up, that means you're reaching the stratosphere and you're no longer in the world that you want to be
you're
in.
leveling up.
You're leveling
up. I remember, dude, and I'm not going to call you out, but I'm going to call
There's
you out.
plenty of moments you're going to be able to call me out.
This is beautiful, right? Because you went through this process. You're going through it now. I'm going through it now, but we're at different, we're at different life experiences. Yeah. But I remember when like we would be in a meeting, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the audience, right?
Totally.
We'd be in a meeting and we'd be like there talking or on a computer, and then your phone would be going off, right? And it could have been like business related. It could have been your mom,
whatever it was.
It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But that was so radical for me because I'm so like maniacal and like laser focused, and I'm so like in control of all this shit because of my personal development, which I wasn't always like that, right?
Totally.
I had kind of already gone down that like path and came out the other side more dialed in.
Totally.
And so you maybe and I hadn't experienced that before. And I remember like looking at you like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
He literally called me out.
Why am I seeing your fuck, like why is like Steve or Susan or why am I seeing that right now?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with what we're trying to do. Turn your shit off. And it was kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then maybe in hindsight, it, like, for you, it was kind of like, dude, he's fucking right. Like, I don't, like, no, I mean, that shit off. Like, this isn't the time for that, right? Because I
remember that moment in San Francisco at the table talking, and you called me out on it. And that's what happens when you're in growing, is things happen that rattle you on the inside, and you're like, ah, and then you're like, wait, actually, they're right, and I'm gonna grow.
If you're not feeling that enough, that may be a sign that you're really not putting yourself in a position to expand and grow, because you're never uncomfortable. Totally. That's actually a great tool or test for somebody to apply to themselves. Is like, how many times in the last month can I recall that I was extremely uncomfortable?
Exactly.
I remember the first time that I used chopsticks at a sushi restaurant, right? I grew up in a small town in Texas. Dad sold refrigerators. Mom was a secretary. like going out to eat was like fast food. Like, let's go to Burger King, McDonald's. Like
Totally.
that was like, we're going out to eat.
Yep.
Applebee's was like going to a 5-star restaurant.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm in Brazil for my first time in Rio. I'm sitting down with a group of friends. A few of them are actually celebrities in Rio.
Yep.
I'm a dude from Texas, El Paso. I haven't read any books, haven't done personal development. I'm literally just like a kid that's like wanting to explore, adventure, that whole thing.
Yep.
And I'm at a restaurant, but all of a sudden I kind of get this like feeling that like this isn't like a normal restaurant. Like things are different. The menu's different. I don't recognize a lot of stuff. This is my first sushi experience, right? And so everybody gets presented their food. I think somebody may have ordered for me. I don't remember.
Yep.
And I'm like in my early 20s. I don't know how to use chopsticks. And everyone's talking about things that are in the New York Times and about art and about music and cities in Brazil I've never heard of before. And I feel so fucking uncomfortable, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this is me. You're talking to a guy that's now been to like 53 countries. Like, I'm like,
that was the start.
I can't even, I'm so different than who I used to be in that moment.
Yeah.
But I remember telling myself in that moment, I was like, dude, I'm never going to allow this to happen to myself again.
So you went home and played with chopsticks?
I was so uncomfortable, dude. I couldn't pick up my food.
But that's...
I was a dude with a fork at the fancy sushi restaurant in Rio.
Yeah.
That looked like a dumbass.
Yeah.
You see the feeling, right?
I see the emotion in your eyes. I see it. I know that look. And there's nothing more disruptive than being embarrassed and knowing that you want to grow, but you don't know how to grow. And you have to create an action or create a solution or find a solution, whatever it is, to grow.
Right.
And those are those moments that define you, and choose whether you stay the same or you grow.
Back, right? Because you could just revert back and be like, oh no, I'm a Texas dude.
Totally.
Like, I don't need this.
But I mean, I'm still embarrassed. I don't even know where it's in my pocket, but I'm still embarrassed to have my phone around you right now because you called me out, and that's a sign of growth.
Right.
And that's how we evolve. But
then you find yourself one day sitting down with a high-level CEO entrepreneur.
Totally.
And that literally can make or break the way that gentleman or that woman perceives you.
Yeah. Because
then let's say you go back to that old habit.
Yep.
Or you never had that interaction happen with me, and they're like, oh no, this dude's he's not like a legit dude. But then they notice like Bryan was super focused at dinner, like he wasn't distracted, like then it's like the way they perceive you is completely different.
Totally different.
You're not rookie anymore.
Correct. So yeah, I mean that's just it's taking these experiences of what we've experienced through life and through our friends and through we've kind of merged this vision of how can we continually evolve and upgrade our mindset and become better contributions to the world and impact the world and be better for our family, our friends. And this is like what's united us over, the common bond of building a business. And that's powerful. And that's, I know what we're trying to build with Umanity and I mean, it's, what are you the most excited about? Just kind of talking about what we're working on. Like, what are you the most excited about from this product or from this concept or vision that we're working on with Umanity?
Well, it's really rekindling for me why we're doing this and the backstory. It's kind of actually refreshing to like rehear like why we are here
in this moment,
why we're here, and who it's for, right? Because it started off with like kind of something for ourselves, and then it led to like the people that were our friends. It led to people who are maybe in our office building. But now the fact that we're thinking about how this could be applied, because we do share that commonality of being human, that we all have certain, fundamental needs, and just seeing what's available in the world, both in a positive and negative sense. Like in the positive sense, technology. I mean, if you have a good message, you could spread that to everybody in the world who has access to internet, electricity.
Totally. And that's only growing. I mean, I think we're at like 258 million people are going to have access to the internet by 2022. Like it's a ridiculous amount. Like we know this.
A fraction of the Earth's population, a small fraction, a fifth of the world actually is online right now, right? So there's so many more people in the next decade coming online.
Correct.
And so it's definitely a relevant topic. It's not that there's not personal development or self-development materials out there. It's there for sure, right?
Right.
It's not something that's being like fully promoted in the traditional education system. So it's something that people literally could pop out of school, whether it be high school or collegiate school, and still not be really aware of like what this means, why it's important, why didn't I already learn this, and kind of have this false sense of already kind of like ready to get a job. And
I have it all figured out.
Growth. Exactly, right? And so that's what you want to avoid. But then there's also this opportunity of kind of leveraging like upcoming and emerging technologies like machine learning and AI and virtual reality and augmented reality that can make what we're trying to accomplish on another level, like even better than we can even imagine or fully visualize today. I mean, I think we have an idea, but it could just get to a completely another level. So the thing that I'm really excited about at the moment is that, if you look at even just the way that the wealth is distributed in the world from what we know, is that 1% of the world has, let's say, 99% of the wealth. Like we kind of can agree on that. We know that to be a fact, right?
A fact, exactly.
Money is not, a lot of people suffer from money issues, but there's no lack of money in the world.
Totally.
Right? And so you have to kind of think to yourself like, well, wait a second, how come 10, 15, 20% of the world is in extreme poverty? Then we have 1% of the world, 5% of the world that's like in extreme amounts of wealth. That only leaves that leaves 75%.
Yep.
This huge chunk of the world is just in like middle class, like average land.
Trying to figure out how to make it or get to the next level.
Right. And what is actually making it? It's like making it having a Mercedes or a BMW, living in the best neighborhood or one of the top 3 neighborhoods in your town.
Yep.
Saving for your kids' college and just kind of being like a little bit above the rest, like the middle class. Like, is that making it?
Yep.
Is financial success the only form of success? Or is there other aspects of success where that has nothing to do with money, right?
Totally.
It's like, are you nice to the person who's waiting your table? Like, are you nice to your family? Like, are you willing to give somebody an ear for an hour and let them like talk through a problem? Like, there's just so many ways to define like being successful. And so I think back to your question is that the thing that excites me about bringing humanity to the world is that not only does it have like a personal connection to like our own individual life stories, but that story is probably so similar to so many other people's life stories that we're taking the work that we've done within ourselves and our connection to one another. And we're creating a vehicle or a mechanism or a platform, whatever word you want to put on it, for so many other people to make connections and friendships and relationships and business partnerships and growth opportunities that literally, I think it's actually beyond our comprehension how much impact doing this well and executing on it can actually have in the world.
Totally.
I mean, if you think about it, if we have 1 million subscribers to UmanityX and 10% of those people become entrepreneurs. That's 100,000 people that have the right mind, the right heart, the right soul, the right alignment, the right connections, the right support group, the right information, that are then going to go out and find the problems with a lot of the ways we're doing things with like plastic, with carbon emissions, with like food, with products. So many changes, so many improvements are going to be made to the way things are being done because of the people that were cultivated in UmanityX, which we weren't. We kind of did it the old school way. But these people, literally their whole personal development journey could happen through the platform and the friendships that they make. It's actually extremely mind-blowing and profound. What could actually appear in the world 10, 15, 20 years from now. And people will be talking about their experience, like, how did you create this company that saved this many people or fed this many people or saved this many lives or transformed this industry into a socially conscious company? And they're going to say in their interview, somebody told me about UmanityX.
I look forward to that day.
You see what I mean? Like that. And now they're literally like the Steve Jobs of their time.
Yeah. I want to answer the same question.
Please do.
So I think for me, it's been such an isolating journey. And I think in addition to what you said, knowing that you're not alone on this journey, and like we talked about, like we all feel like we're on this individual journey, and yes, we are. It is our journey, but to be able to empathize and connect and communicate with people and realize that we're actually not alone, like the issue that we have, it's shared. And when you realize that we share so many similarities as a species, as humanity, and you realize you're not alone, the world becomes a more friendly place, a less, intimidating, less friction. And you could find a way to work through those issues more quickly. There's organization, there's chaos on the world, but we have to go through the flow of this motion, and we have to learn and grow and either fail or succeed as quickly as possible. So ultimately we can move on and go into a place of happiness or peacefulness or contentness, and just realizing our full potential, whatever that is to us, what we define for us, what we want. And I think that's what I'm most excited about, is because I saw my friends that probably felt isolated.
Do you think they could have benefited from being a part of the UmanityX community?
I think in full development, when we had all communities engaged, I think one of the biggest weaknesses we have as a community or a species right now is that we have issue connecting with different generations. I'm a firm believer that there's benefits from intergenerational connections, and my friends range from 27 to 55, let's say. And I
see the world so different.
See the world so differently, but yet we all need each other. And I think that's one of the things that I look forward to, is with a fully developed concept, is that people that are 40, 50, 60 are helping people that are 20 and 30 connect, and they both find purpose in that connection.
Right.
And they realize that we all need each other. Right now, I think we're at a point in society where we don't think we need each other, but yet we need each other more so now than ever before in the history of the world to solve the problems that are ahead of us.
It's a really fascinating dynamic. The fact that our human progress, technologically speaking, has made things so much more efficient and effective and expansive, and that's led us to kind of independency.
Totally.
Because everything I possibly need, I can get a driver to pick me up. Somebody can deliver me my groceries. I don't even need to fucking drive my car anymore.
Totally.
I want to go on a date tonight. I don't need to go hunting.
No.
Just download an app and swipe, boom, everything. So I'm super independent.
Yeah.
But what that wasn't my choice. The energy of the world created that reality for us.
Totally.
We didn't say, hey, I don't need any friends. I don't want any community. I don't want any relationships. That just kind of was imposed on us.
Yeah.
And now I think we're starting to realize as a species, we're wait a second. What does it look like to have all these features and benefits if I want them?
Totally.
And still have the beauty of the old school before there was technology, where it was community, and there was family, and there was friends, and there was meeting new people and doing things together. That's the perfect world, right?
When we're all working towards a common cause, and we feel that reward of we're working towards something both individually and collectively, like on a sports team.
That's a great example.
When we could find that purpose and mission again in humanity, to work towards a common goal, that's what will unite the world. But until we get there, until we realize that we need each other.
Right. So the same way people are aspiring for touchdowns and field goals and 3-pointers, people could be mutually aspiring together for life breakthroughs, overcoming challenges,
helping the world,
making contribution, but it's the same dynamic.
Correct.
Let's work on us and this together.
Correct.
Let's all win and experience it and share it. It's quite beautiful.
It's one of our biggest goals or highest aspirations as a human species, is to not only grow, but to feel connected, to feel wanted, to feel like we're contributing. Those are 4 of the 6 or 7 highest desires as human beings.
Right.
And until we realize that, the world won't be able to heal itself and become more whole and collectively grow together. So
great point.
There's a lot of change that we have to do as a species, and it will come with time. I'm a firm believer an optimist that humanity will correct itself. But this is at least what I feel we can do right now to contribute in the way that we know how.
So wrapping this conversation up, it's been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, dude. Really great. We'll have to have you back on the show. Luckily, we're close, so you'll probably be back on in like 5 episodes. But so just kind of wrapping it up, if someone's out there, they're a little bit hazy on what UmanityX is, what they can expect from it. Obviously, it's not a fully developed product yet. It's in the process. Who is UmanityX right for? What can they expect from the product like right now, and like where is it going? And how can they, what's in it for them? Why should they look to UmanityX versus any of the alternatives? What's different?
So I think the biggest part is community. The biggest thing that we could bring together right now are people. And I think the thing that we have to ask within ourselves is, are we experiencing fear in life? Are we experiencing doubt? Are we experiencing uncertainty? Are we experiencing isolation, loneliness? Those are all key signs that
a desire for more,
that we're not connected at the level that we want. And so for anybody that has any question that they're not getting out of the most of life, because listen, if you're not even questioning it, to you in your mind, there's nothing wrong in life.
You're in Disneyland, full access pass.
Life is great. But if you have 1%, 1 ounce of question in your life that you want more, then UmanityX is for that person that is wanting that. Because there you're going to find daily motivation, daily connection, daily inspiration, and that's going to start to get your mind moving in a way that you didn't realize you needed. It's going to allow you to realize, oh, this is why I'm feeling this way, or, oh, that's what I actually wanted. It's going to open your mind and your eyes and your heart and your connections in a new way.
It's like a catapult. I mean, really,
totally.
Once you step on, if you're full in and you experience the content, you experience the connections, you experience a workshop. I mean, literally from 1 day, 2-3 day workshop to the next, instead of like jumping on a trampoline and just catapulting yourself like out mentally of where you're currently at, right? And start taking the steps to get there.
And so if you're listening to this, my guess, having been in that situation, is you're wanting more from life. And you could either figure it out yourself, and that may take you, and I'll speak from personal experience, 6 to 10 years, right? There's nothing wrong with going on your own journey, but you have to connect the dots versus connecting with a collective community that's going to offer you insight and wisdom and opportunities.
Like, hey, Bryan, I see that you want a job in real estate in New York, and like we're a part of UmanityX together. Like, I know a friend.
Come out to New York right now.
It just happens like in an instant.
Exactly.
Because we have something in common. I feel, like it's really fascinating, actually, when you really, really think about the power of having a common interest, coming together with like-minded people. Everybody has an intention of helping themselves, helping others.
Totally.
The world, like the doors just start like opening for you. Right?
So you could do it on your own. What's the quote that you always say? You could do it alone.
Like go alone, go far, or go alone, go fast, go together, go far.
Exactly. And I think at this point, we're all here to go far. We're all here to make the most of our life experience. We're here to experience humanity at the highest level and to have our greatest impact in the world.
Right.
And through UmanityX, that's what I know we're trying to do. And that's what we're going to create the opportunity for others to do.
Amazing, dude. So where would you advise people to get involved? How can they join a workshop? How can they, sign up for the app? What can they do now until this product is released in order, depending on when they're watching this? What are some things that they can do tomorrow to start taking action, but then also how can they find out about UmanityX and subscribe? Sure.
So most easiest way is to find everything in one place is at UmanityX.com. That's UmanityX.com. There we have access to the workshops that we're putting on. We have access to the community. You get to know us better. We have our blog. So that's the most central place for everything.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, carving out space to listen to yourself is the single best thing you could do. That doesn't matter if it's at the gym for an hour, if that's listening or reading to a book for an hour, if that's on the platform of UmanityX, connecting with the community. If you don't carve out time for yourself to expand your mind, to think about what you want, to connect to your heart, you're just never going to create that space or time to step into your full self and create the life that you want. And so I think that's the single best thing that you could start doing tomorrow is an hour of meditation, an hour of reading, an hour of volunteering, an hour of calling your family up and listening, whatever it is. Create space to connect and expand your mind.
Got it. Okay, that's a phenomenal takeaway. If people wanted to follow you, in particularly, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so on Instagram at Bryan Kosarek, it's BryanKosarek.
Okay.
Or my website, bryankosarek.com. LinkedIn, Bryan Kosarek. So everywhere. Yeah. So that's how you could.
And they can message you, maybe ask you, point a few questions at you.
I'm a fully open book. Whatever you want to know, whatever questions you have, whatever you need, to the extent that I can help you, I'm here to help you in your life journey.
Love it, brother. Thanks for that. And if there's any resources maybe that you've come up with that you would want to share, if somebody's like, okay, dude, I'm in, I love what you said, I'm motivated, I'm pumped,
yep.
I'm gonna dedicate the hour. I'm a little confused as to if I should meditate or read a book or which book. If there was like one resource, if you were to like lay out their day tomorrow, if you were to like say, you know what, I would suggest this, like where should they start? What would be a good starting point?
Oof. One book or one website or one?
Whatever you feel like, whatever. I mean, if someone's out there that's literally like, dude, help me. Like, I need help. Like, get me started with the first book. Get me started with the first website, the first video, like a person that I should start, doubling down on.
I mean, listen, I'll give you one piece of advice that I've already said, and I'll give you one book. But the piece of advice is get very clear on your core values. Once you have your core values, those are your guiding principles in life.
And is there an exercise?
Yeah.
Like, how can somebody
super quick, look at the happiest moments of your life, create a list, and see what was present. Was it connection? Was it community? Was it adventure? And come up with your happiest moments in life, create those values with each moment, and then create a list and rank them from 1 to however many, and focus on those top 3. When you're clear on your top 3 core values, those are your guiding principles in life.
Now, just to be devil's advocate. So what if, like, let's say I'm at a point where I haven't had a great upbringing. I'm in my early 20s, late 20s, whatever. I just haven't had a lot of highlights in my life.
Sure.
But, I've been to a couple festivals. I've been to a couple like cool house parties, a couple good sporting events. Those are the best kind of moments of my life. Am I supposed to be in the music industry and in like sports because those are like the highlights? Like, it seems a little bit gray for me. Like, how do I find myself, like co-founding UmanityX when really the only highlight of my life was going to like a summer music festival or hooking up with this girl at like a club one night, or like, there's my family's kind of boring.
It's easy. There's one word, yes. Say yes in life. Say yes to everything. When you asked me to be a potential business partner, I could have said no. I could have given you a million reasons why I didn't, but I said yes.
That's a good point. You would have missed out.
A lot. And when you said, I want you to leave New York, I said yes. And when you said, I want you to go to Bali and I want you to do this, I said yes. Mm-hmm. Because only through testing yourself can you learn what you like and what you don't like.
There's actually a lot of people, the majority of people would have not said yes in those instances.
Correct.
You had to make a lot of perceived sacrifices, right? With like comfort, with like relationships, with a transition in yourself. Like you could have been from, let's say, a point where you didn't know everything in New York about real estate, but you had a good foothold on the New York real estate market.
Correct.
You had to like let all of that go and start off being like completely humble. Correct. And now I'm the rookie again.
Correct.
Day one in New York real estate. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
And I was already kind of like semi-respected in this industry. Like I was past that point. But so I commend you for that. Honestly,
thank you.
Because the majority of people do not have the balls to do that.
Correct. But I will say one thing. Every time I've said yes in life, it's given me results or an outcome that delivered me happiness 10 times what I was experiencing. Maybe it takes a little period to get over that.
Sure.
But if you're not clear on your core values, you have to test yourself. Say yes, try everything in life, and you could walk out through those experiences saying, yes, I like that. No, I didn't like that. That made me happy. That didn't.
Even the things you didn't like, it's still a win, right?
It's still a win.
Like, now I know the type of person I don't want to date.
Exactly.
Or now I know that real estate isn't the grip for me. So that's still a win, even though it could seem like a loss. Correct. It's just an elimination, going back to my point earlier about when I start my day and how I prioritize. Exactly. It starts with elimination. Exactly. So any experiment that's failed, is just clearing the path for you to go down the right. And
the one resource or book that I would recommend is Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. Okay. That was one of the moments that defined when I wanted to do Humanity Fest. Love it. And that has turned into where we are today. So
Eckhart Tolle, New Earth. Did you read that one or did you do audio?
I read it actually on an airplane.
Awesome. I know for some people, Eckhart Tolle is a little bit tough because depending on where you are in your personal development process, that can seem like a little bit like, whoa, like that's super high level. Sure. So if somebody, let's say, is like, love that book, love Eckhart Tolle, already read it. Yep. Do you have another one just as a backup for somebody?
I think A Code of the Extraordinary Mind, you and I both agree, is probably one of the most essential introductory reads by Vishen Lakhiani. That's a phenomenal read, and I think absolutely will introduce you to the world as you need to see it.
I would agree with you 1,000%. If I was to chime in just to add extra value to the audience, I'm going to go one on the business side and one on the spiritual side. Okay. When I say business, I'm going to go all the way down to the fundamentals of business. Okay. So even if you've done it before, I would highly suggest that you do it again and go super deep. Yep. Because I think without this way of thinking, it's going to be very difficult for you to like succeed and get to where you want to be fast on the business side, life side. And then on the spiritual side, I think it's a very approachable recommendation that will be a phenomenal introduction into that side of your life, right? Sure. So on the spiritual side, I would go Wayne Dyer.
Definitely.
I would just like put in his name into YouTube.
Anything Wayne Dyer.
Until UmanityX is created, I would go to YouTube. Once UmanityX is created, there'll be no need for YouTube. Yeah. It'll all be there. Yep. Nice and curated and personalized. So Wayne Dyer goes super deep. I'd probably buy one or two of his books, listen to him on audio. If you want to go the free route, which I would encourage you to do anyway, definitely listen to as many video recordings that he has online. Like literally setting yourself a goal, like say I'm going to do 10, just because Luke said it, I'm going to do 10 hours of Wayne Dyer. Yeah. You will come out a different person on the other side at 10 hours. And the crazy part is like you could do 10 hours like on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like literally from 1 week to the next, you could be an upgraded. Like you could go from iPhone 7 to like iPhone 9, like in one weekend. That's super profound, right? Totally. So Wayne Dyer, and then on the business side, I would say go old school, go Jim Rohn.
He's great.
Go Jim Rohn, watch a couple videos from Jim Rohn. Mm-hmm. And when you can marry those two ways of thinking, even though they're like a bit old school, but I think they have a lot of like fundamental value, like moving forward. Totally. Man, you could be a completely different version of yourself, literally in one weekend.
Absolutely. I read that book on one flight, and as Mel Robbins says, you're always one decision away from a whole new life.
Hell yeah. So, dude, thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you for
that was powerful.
Creating the space for me to be here and talk about it. So
absolutely. Even if there's only 10 people listening to this, 100, 1,000, that's impact. Right? That's impact. Back to your point that you made earlier. So
it only takes one person to impact and change the world.
That's it. So for those of you out there, even if it's one of you that got something out of this, send Bryan a message on LinkedIn.
Any way I could help you on here?
Say hello, follow.
Definitely. I appreciate it.
Dude. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
All right, let's get back to work.